Hi, I'm Sam from the Renaissance Sword Club, and I'm here to talk to you about the Partizan, which is a polearm with a long cut and thrust blade, which has two lugs at the base of it. It's primarily a thrust-oriented weapon, and it can be used one or two-handed, with either hand in the lead, and that hand in a nails-down or nails-up grip.
This is something similar to what I'm using in the video.
Whereas this is an example of a slightly later Partizan. And here you can see some of the huge range of different styles of this weapon.
Using the Partizan is an awful lot like single Bolognese side sword, but thrust oriented.
You can see here some of the thrusts, either thrusting with opposition, that is, sliding up the haft of the opponent's weapon in order to thrust safely and control it, or else setting their weapon aside and then bringing your point back online and thrusting before they can recover it. It's not demonstrated here, but the lugs can actually be used as a controlling device. You can trap and bind the weapon with it. I usually find it's better to do that on the haft if you can, below the head. Otherwise you just wind up with both of you trapped and it becomes a pushing contest. And you can see here, making these thrusts with a little bit of a void to change the line. It's another way that you can gain space in which to attack and keep yourself safe. And now some examples from free play, because stabbing a dummy doesn't teach you anything. Now, disengaging. Whether you call it a cavere, cavazione, sfalsata, cut under, you see actions like this in all sorts of bladed systems. Just that movement underneath the blade. Sometimes with a little bit of a misdirection, that initial push there to try and get them pushing back so that when you do, it's even more effective. Disengaging, disengaging, disengaging. It's just that arc of movement underneath to re-engage on the other side. A little bit of offline movement there to try and keep yourself safe as you're doing it and to open up a different line for the attack. On the second action, the thrust can be made with more cover from the Partizan itself because of the side of my body on which it is, so there's less offline movement needed.
Struggling a little with the fact that the other Partizan I'm using won't stay where I put it.
And another example from free play. So, cuts. Most of the cuts that we see are quite short cuts to the lead hand or lead leg. I believe that the reason for this is to keep yourself from becoming very exposed to countering the thrust. The Partizan would be an effective cutting weapon because of the leverage, but the length that gives it that leverage would also mean that any cutting action is very large and easily read. Here's some more examples from free play, this time to the leg. Now we're going to look at cutting to the hands. Here were some little rising cuts. Definitely not just because the Partizan I had set up to work against was falling down. And some more examples there. Snipe, snipe, snipe. Snipe, snipe, snipe. One of the other key things with the Partizan is being able to change grip. It can be used on either side. The safest, I think, way to do this is to change your front hand. This can be used with a defensive action because you're sweeping the weapon from side to side. So this can be used to beat aside a thrust and then potentially give yourself a nice line on which to respond. Here's some changing in free play. The other way to do it is to change your rear hand. Quite often that can be done with a strong, quick, long thrust forwards. There is a risk to that though, which I think is demonstrated in some of the free play examples I've put in. But here you can see you can actually get a very quick thrust out of that. The risk though is when the weapon's extended in one hand it can be very easily pushed aside. And we're going to finish with one last thing included purely because it's cool.